Hello, my name is Lance Cole, and this is this video series on my channel is called. Sorry, you'll find in my videos I like to film outside because I dislike being outside as a result of my 6.5 years of homelessness. So it's called A Spanged Life. Spanged is a play on words. We'll get into that later. This video series, this channel is going to have just tell a story of my 6.5 years of homelessness in the city of Springfield, Missouri here, and my depths of alcoholism that I was, the level I went down to, and the combination of which, ended up, I wasn't a tent city homeless person. I was sleeping behind dumpsters or out in the woods or anywhere where I could get away with it without getting thrown in jail for trespassing. So this video series is going to include my homelessness and how I got out of it. It's going to include my alcoholism, and it will be some funny stories, and it will be some irreverent stories, and some of it's going to be told with a sense of humor, and there'll be foul language, life on the streets, and in that sort of environment. The stories are going to include a roughness, because it's a rough, hard, traumatic life. 6.5 years, it left its impact on me in how I view life. I'm a completely different person. But my survival, and I like to say my return in this series, not just recovery, but my return. Recovery is definitely part of it, but I feel blessed, and this series is also going to cover, I did not get sober through faith. I did not do through religion. Many tried to help me through religion, and I was very thankful for that in my years on the street. I did not do it with AA, and that's important for some people because it also tends to tie to religion. Whether they say they're non-religious, they're religious, but AA, I do regret, and I'll say that too, in my recovery, my recovery, I did not use AA, and I regret it because I would not have been able to follow the 12-step program. It's just not programmed that way. When you're homeless and also an alcoholic, you're an addict, you don't tend to follow rules. You don't like to follow rules, and I never have liked to follow rules. So I would not have done the 12 steps, but I regret the chance to build a fellowship that AA can provide to you. And I say to anyone, because my story is very unorthodox, I say to anyone, whatever works for you to get sober or get clean off of your drug, any tool, more power to you. Use that tool. Stay clean, stay sober, stay strong. I was very fortunate in how I got off the street. That will come up in my videos. Also, I'll cover the medications that I use to help me get sober. And this medication, I'll tell you now, and we'll get into it later in some of the videos. I do get into it in some of the older videos. But I hope you all watch this first because it's a much shorter video. I learned a lot of lessons in my early videos. So if you watch any of them, I'm sorry about that. If you're all new to my channel, welcome. You're gonna hear some crazy stories. I use the medication naltrexone. Is a pill form which you take after a certain period of sobriety or cleanliness, depending on what your addiction is. It works for opiates. It works for opiates, and it works for alcohol. And to finding out, it even works for overeating to some degree. But unfortunately, for a lot of people out there, it's bad news. It does not work for methamphetamine, and that is a plague upon the country right now, if not the world. So I use the medication naltrexone. And after I took the pill form to make sure I wasn't allergic to it, I took the shot Vivitrol, which is the exact same medication, but it's injected in your body in a cortisone thick shot. It's not comfortable at all. It's not the worst shot I've ever had in my life, though, and it's worth every aspect of what it did for me in my recovery. And what it does, it will block your opioid receptors, your dopamine receptors in your brain. And so if you drink or you use pills or heroin, for heroin addicts out there, I've met a lot of them on the street in my years out there. I met a lot of people that chase pills, bad, and as in trading, this is going to be some of the stuff you're going to hear about, trading sexual favors, male on male, for pills. And his wife knew about it. She just, oh, well, what can I do? Anyways, so it works for pills. What it does is it blocks the dopamine receptors in your brain. So if you drink or use your pills, you won't feel the pleasure effects from your drug of choice. You will get inebriated, or if the pills make you unsteady, or again, you will act, you will not be coordinated. You'll lose your coordination, whatever. If you drink, you'll become a slurry drunk, whatever, but you won't feel good doing it. And you also get sick. So that's a nice part about it, and believe me, I tested it. I was on Vivitrol more than once. I think 3 different times, and every time I tried to drink on it, one time I successfully did. It's not a pleasant change of head. It's a mind-altering substance in the way it acts, but it feels weird. It's not pleasurable, and you have to drink past the vomiting stage, and that's not fun because it's projectile vomiting, and everything comes out. So this drug, besides doing that, besides making you sick if you do use, it also cut my cravings in half. And so I think for those of you who are curious, real fast, before we I want to get this video done 10 or 15 minutes. Anyways, for those of you who want to know fast, I was given a living situation with someone who had been sober 12 years at the time, and against everyone's advice, and people that watch this video, we're going to hear from traditional recovery therapists or program people, and then they're going to tell you their formula. I didn't use any formula. I got into a relationship immediately with this person, this woman that was 12 years sober, and she gave me a place to live. It took me a couple months to get clean. Finally, I tried to taper down. My therapist and I were working on it, and every time I jumped back, I finally had to put myself in the psych ward. Sorry, bugs out here. Psych ward for suicidal ideations, even though I didn't truly have them at the time. I had been in the psych ward, I'm not gonna lie about that. You heard about that in the other stories. I was in the psych ward at least a dozen times for suicidal ideations. And sometimes it was a grasp for recovery, for sobriety, and sometimes it was suicidal ideations. I don't joke about suicide. I might laugh about my thoughts on suicide. Suicide is never a joke. If anyone's out there, I don't know what the suicide hotline's number is, but I know what 911 is, and that's all it takes. If you feel that bad, life is worth it. If you could go as deep and low as I went, I was a freaking bum. Sorry, I was a fucking bum. Society, everyone in society, and what I was raised to believe, by my family, my fathers, people like me were despicable bums, and I realized that's what I was. An alcoholic that begged for money, wouldn't work, couldn't work, and would never look for work because could never get sober enough to work. It was a bad scene, and again, I wasn't in a tent city. I was out there a lot of times by myself. I would say half of the time I lived in those 6.5 years on the street. If I wasn't in jail, there was probably almost a year all bounced around in there. A 6-month go at one time, that was bad. Jail stories will come later, and they're funny. When I laugh about these stories, there's nothing that I could do at the time in the depths of my depression, in the depths that I have descended in my life with my alcoholism, the complete lack of dignity, the pissing my pants, the shitting my pants, that was there. I wasn't always like that. There was times I was much more in control of my drinking on the streets, but days where I would wake up, the first thing I would do, absolutely first thing I would do, is grab a cigarette and a drink, and then drink until I passed out, and then I would wake up and do it again. Sometimes I had to make money, so I would stretch out the period of my drinking and not drink as much, but eventually every night I was pass out drunk. That's the only way I could sleep through the nights. Severe alcoholics have many sleep problems. Anyways, so we'll talk about, my homeless life, how I recovered from it. We'll talk about the medications I used that I just described. We'll talk about the need for building a support network. And this is for family members out there, and husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, everyone. If you think that this alcoholic in your life or this addict in your life is just beyond hope, everyone in my life thought that, and so did I. I gave up on my life. We'll talk about that. I said, you know, I'm going to die here on the streets. It's a very hard thing. I'm trying to not get emotional. I get emotional because it was a very real, very fucking hard life. And it was not pleasant. There were some great points to it. Freedom, no rules except for what the cops say. That's always a constant concern, the cops. But other than that, hide from them or just learn how to deal with them and how to avoid them or not draw attention. It's violence on the streets, very violent for some people on the streets. Some people just stay high all the time, stay dope, or they're constantly chasing, trying to get that dope or alcohol, heroin, get some horse, bang that shit. Anyways, there's people constantly chasing that, and I constantly chased alcohol. And then, you know, I would pass out or lay out and fall asleep wherever on the side of the road on the stretch of grass. You know, and the cops come and kick your body, you kick your leg, and you got a report of a dead body. It had that more than once, you know. And there's times you're gonna hear about where at least 3 times I had really bad hypothermia. One time I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Core temperature was 95 degrees. And I was lucky someone discovered me when I shouted out over and over that night, you know, that I survived that night. Because so many homeless people on this, you know, out there die of exposure. And, you know, or they die of overdose, but you know, the elements are a huge thing, especially in wintertime. I've slept out when it was 5 degrees, you know, or 0 degrees out in the winter, you know, with a tent and a couple sleeping bags. You know, maybe you can get a campfire going. I burned myself one time when it was 20 degrees out. I didn't have a tent. I had just a tarp. My friend was sleeping under it. I slept by the fire. My insulated coverall was caught on fire. I almost lost my leg. So we're going to spend 16 days in the hospital. We're going to hear a lot of stories, and I will laugh a lot about these things, especially interactions with law enforcement. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, you're going to hear some stories, and I'll make light of them because humor was my way to protect myself and defend what little I had left, you know, and any hope I had in life, which I had very little. I had lost pretty much all hope from getting off the streets and ever quitting alcohol. Sorry for that noise. Law enforcement, I joke and laugh, you know, and sometimes I tell stories that are a lot about my drunken behavior, or it involves my drunken behavior, because a lot of my stories from homelessness, like it or not, are going to involve my use of alcohol. And I might laugh and joke, and a lot of AA program people will tell you I'm making glorification stories or telling glorification stories. I might tell stories in my videos and laugh. All those experiences with law enforcement are always tense. You know, the time that I told the officer I didn't want to smell pork, but I didn't have a choice after he slapped a cigarette in my mouth, his partners kind of laughed, and he was real pissed. Anyways, so, but it's always very tense when you're not sure you're going to jail. What stupid thing did they stop you for today, or they pull up for today? Why did they come 2 cars strong, 3 cars strong for this homeless guy? You know, they know anyways. There's this harmless, no drug conviction, no drug charges on my record, only alcohol charges, you know. And why do they come up that strong, you know, on homeless people? And I watched it time again, you know, with other homeless people on the street. I'm lucky I got my life back. We're going to try to cut this off in 15 minutes. If there's anything in my series to the family members, you know, like I was saying a little bit ago, don't give up, because a lot of people that I've talked and told some of my story to, and a lot of people have seen me in the depths of my homelessness and have seen me now, say my story is amazing. And so I think it's worth listening to. I think it's worth watching. I think it's worth sharing, because there's hope. If there was no hope in my case, and my puppy's here, sorry, my emotional support dog and her emotional support dog. We'll talk about her later. Can you call her, please? That's my Georgia Bill. She's my emotional support dog. Also helped me very much in my sobriety. Anyways, we're going to try to cut this short. There's hope, and share my story. And any one life it saves out there is important to me. And anyone that sees this, anyone that's in addiction or alcoholism, it's all the same, you know, but we tend to call drugs addiction, you know, just in the end, recovery. You're gonna, you know, you're gonna see it's hard, but there's hope, you know, and it's possible. you know, in depths of addiction, you don't think it's possible. And my life is so much insanely better now. I've got things going on in my life right now. You know, just as introductory, you'll hear about it in my other video. I was just diagnosed, or sorry, my ultrasound just revealed I have a mass growing on my one lobe of my liver. So that's something new I got to process in my life right now. But with whatever strength I've gained from the process I used to get sober, from the process I used, you know, I was lucky with my help to get off the street. I would not have been able to succeed without some reach out from some program or something. You know, I was on lists for housing, but the lists are long, and you can die waiting on a list. I've had friends die on the street, exposure, you know, and overdose and stroke. One of my great campmates, Victor, died of a stroke. Went in the hospital, never came out. You know, died on the streets. So you'll hear some about that, some about this, but there's hope. You know, my life is living hell, and it was a living hell at the time. But there, like I said, there was high points, freedom. Sleeping outside. Now I've got this. Why I'm always going to be filming outside is homelessness, living out in the woods for a lot, or just living. You have no place to go. You don't understand. When you say homeless, people think about it. Yeah, there's never a place to go in the heaviest of rain just to go. Okay, I'm here. I'm sheltered. I'm cool. Unless you're trespassing somewhere, sleeping under a fucking bridge, or you know, which my dad always joked about when I was growing up. Oh yeah, he's going to end up sleeping in a box under a bridge. That kid. You know, and here I was sleeping without a box under a bridge on the bare dirt with no blanket. You know, that's home. You know, what do you do when you have to get up at 3:30 in the morning and it's 15 degrees outside and you got to take a crap? You know, it takes you 20 minutes to warm back up after you walk out in the snow and do your business, and you climb back in your bag and you shiver for 20 minutes. And everyone else gets to walk across the carpet to the bathroom, sit on the seat, and flush it, and walk right back to bed and fall back to sleep. Yeah, so there's hope. You know, some of these stories are funny. None of it was, or some of it was funny at the time, but a lot of it was not funny. And the stories that involve alcohol are not meant to glorify again. They're meant to demonstrate what life was like on the street. And most people on the street, I would say 75% of the people I was meeting on the street or spent time with on the street, I would say 75% were, you know, addicted to something. So that's, you know, getting out of homelessness is a topic I will cover another time, but it's possible. I'm an example to everyone out there. It's possible. It can be done. There's hope for the addicts. I hope there's some addicts and alcoholics out there watching this that don't know and don't want the church. I didn't use the church. Medication was key, and support I had from a partner was key, but I did not build a fellowship, which I regret. I wish I had used AA for that, and I may start using it very soon for that fellowship, because all this stuff going on in my life is very hard right now, and I'm still staying sober, still staying strong, and it's amazing this strength I feel now. I don't want to drink alcohol. I could never in my life, you know, or sorry, when I was homeless on the streets, I could never in my life picture a time in my life when alcohol would not be something, because my life revolved around alcohol for 25 years. Everything focused on the opportunity to drink. So I'm back and I feel great. You know, I've fucking got a mass on my liver. Great news. I processed that. I'm going to deal with it. I've got an MRI on the 21st. If anyone out there is following the series about when I reveal that, the 21st of July is my MRI on my liver, and they seem to be in a rush to get it done. I hope that's just because they care that much. So, all right, let me cut this off. It's almost 20 minutes, and that was more than I wanted to do, but I want to make this introduction. And just please share, please subscribe, because the more subscribers I get, the more people can hear my story and keep seeing my different videos, and share those interesting videos they like, and not share the ones that they don't care a shit about. But please do share. Please like, please subscribe, and if you want to use the bell to get alerts, you know, anything helps me, please, to share my story, to save lives. And please, you know, for anyone, like I said, loved ones and addicts themselves, it's possible. I'm here to share it. And I want you to follow my story, and it's going to be a wild ride now. Thank you, and follow.